Welcome to Made in the Low Country. Thank you for visiting my channel. My name is Stephanie and today I will be pressure canning chicken and then sharing 3 meal ideas to use the chicken. As you can see, we are currently full-timing in our RV. I don't let having a very small space stop me from getting delicious meals in my pantry for convenience. I'm so glad you're here. Let's get started. First, gather your supplies. I'm starting with clean jars. They've been run in my dishwasher, and yes, we have a dishwasher. I'll drop a picture here so you can see it. When we decided to full-time on our RV, it was a must-have because I hate hand washing dishes. We've done a full reno on our RV, and I may do a video on that eventually. I have washed my bands with warm soapy water and my lids, and then here are just some extra supplies we'll need: a jar lifter, a funnel. I also have my All-American pressure canner on an external electric burner because it's summer here and it gets really hot, so I'd prefer not to run the gas stove in my RV. So I love to use this little Broil King burner. I got it from Amazon. I'll drop a link below. I'll also drop a link to the USDA recipe for this below, but we're going to go over it together in just a moment. We're going to prepare the canner by adding a couple of inches of water and then just turning it to warm because we're cold packing this chicken, raw packing this chicken, so we don't want to cause any thermal shock. So I'm just going to slowly bring the water up to just barely warm. I've already cut my chicken up, and I cut it up in about, I guess, 2 by 2, approximately 2 by 2 pieces. It's going to cook in the jar while in the pressure canner, so that's the reason we can raw pack this. I'm just going to, again, filling the jars. You're going to want to leave 1 1/4 head space per jar. You want it loosely packed, but you don't want to leave air bubble space because that would be space for chicken. So I'm just going to lightly press on it a little. Continue until you've filled all of your jars. Next, debubble and adjust the head space as necessary. It's a little much in that one. So I know this is 1 inch. It's touching, so now the new regulation is 1 1/4. Because the chicken makes so much broth. And just continue to do this for all of your jars. If you want to add salt to your cans, you'll need a non-iodized salt. I'm just using pink Himalayan sea salt, and you can use up to 1/2 teaspoon for pints and up to 1 teaspoon for quarts. Since I'm doing pints, I'm going to do 1/2 teaspoon. This step is totally optional. And you'll want to clean the rims of your jars. I'm going to just use some vinegar on a paper towel for placing your lids on. Raw packed canning chicken is probably the easiest thing that I can, and the best thing to have in my pantry. We'll turn these finger tight, meaning as tight as you can get them with your fingertips. You're not going to crank it with your whole arm or hand. Just as tight as you can get it with your fingertips is plenty. I have a mixture of 4-jar lids and ball lids. I just pick up whatever's convenient. 4 jars ran a sale, and I think I got 2 500 packs for a great price last year. I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but I've had really good success with them. Good luck with them. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but now that my jars are in my canner, I can see that the water rose too much, so I'm going to take some of the water out. You only need 2 inches of water for the pressure canner. Tighten from opposite sides so that the lid stays level. And to turn the temperature up, I'm just going to go to about medium high because we want it to come up slowly. I'm going to let that come to a full steam. It will steam at a full steam, not a broken steam, but a full steam for 10 minutes. So I'll see you back when we're there. All right, so let's go over the USDA guidelines for canning, raw pack canning chicken. We have table 1 and table 2. Table 1 is using a dial gauge pressure canner. Table 2 is for a weighted gauge pressure canner. My All-American has a dial and a gauge. I'm going to be using a gauge today because I have not taken my dial to be tested at the College Extension Center. Here's your elevation. The weight you use will depend on your elevation. I'm at about 175 feet elevation, I believe. So if I were using a dial gauge, I would be canning at 11 pounds of pressure. But I'm going to be using a weighted gauge. So I just flipped it over from the back. I wrote it. So I'm doing pint-sized jars. I'm going to process for 75 minutes. And since I'm at 0 to 1,000 feet, I'm going to be using 10 pounds of pressure. Now, if you're above 1,000 feet with a weighted gauge, you're going to be using 15 pounds of pressure. Since I've never used a dial gauge, I've not looked at that much. I'm not very familiar with it, but because I have always just used my weight, I find that easier. I have to just listen for my jiggles. So what I'm going to be listening for is 1 to 4 jiggles per minute at 10 pounds of pressure. I don't know if you'll be able to see it on camera, but the canner is now at a full steam, so I'm going to start a timer and let it vent for 10 minutes. We've been venting for 10 minutes, so now it's time to add the weight. So the weight has 5, 10, and 15. Since I'm under 1,000 feet elevation, I'll be using the 10 pounds. If you're over 1,000 feet, you'll use the 15. It's really easy to slide the weight on. Just go in from the side and set it on. Now I'm going to wait for it to jiggle 1 to 4 times per minute steadily, and then I'll start my 75-minute timer for my pint jars. Okay, we've just started jiggling, so I started a timer on my watch to test how many jiggles I'm getting per minute. I'm going to start my 75-minute timer and I'll see you back when we're done. Okay, my alarm just went off and my 75 minutes is up, so I'm simply going to turn off my pot and let it sit unbothered until the pressure reaches 0. I'll be looking at this gauge for 0 pressure. The pressure gauge is at 0, so now it's time to remove the weight to allow any excess steam to escape from the pot. You may or may not hear steam, but you'll want to let it sit for 10 minutes to allow all of the steam in the pot to escape before removing the lid. So I'm going to start my timer for 10 minutes. The time is up. 10 minutes is up. It's time to remove the lid and take out the jars. So here we are the next morning, and the last thing I'm going to do before getting these jars on my shelf is I'm going to remove the rings. I'm going to test each jar to be sure I have a good seal. Then I'm going to wipe all of them down with a warm soapy rag. Sometimes we get a little siphoning. They can get kind of greasy. We don't want to put them on our shelf greasy. And I'll just take a paper towel, dry it. I have a lot of canned goods on my shelf, so I'll always label them and date them. This is chicken. I'll repeat that for all of my jars and then put them on the shelf. I hope you'll join me for the next part of this video. I'm going to share 3 recipes, 3 of our favorite recipes for using these wonderful jars of chicken. Coming up are 3 recipes to use with your newly canned chicken. The first is chicken and dumplings. In a large stock pot, combine 1 quart of chicken broth and 1 quart of water. Bring this to a simmer. In a small bowl, combine 1½ cups of Bisquick and just enough milk to bring it together. Give it a good stir. This is going to be the base of the chicken and dumplings. It's going to make it into a thick stew and add flavor. Salt and pepper your simmering broth, and then drop your Bisquick dumplings into the pot. Don't worry about shaping them because they're really going to fall apart, and just make it thick. For the dumplings, you can buy the frozen dumplings in the freezer department of the grocery store, but we prefer canned biscuits for our dumplings. They're thicker and chewier, and we just like the way they taste better. I usually tear them in half and drop them in the pot. Give it a quick stir, and then add the rest of the biscuits. I used 2 cans total and I was feeding 6 people. Next, add your canned chicken and give it another stir, breaking it apart. Cover and simmer for 5 to 7 minutes. Add a few tablespoons of butter and stir well. It's delicious and thick and makes a wonderful dinner, especially on a cold night. Salt and pepper to taste, and enjoy. The next recipe is a chicken Alfredo bake. I'm going to be using my Philips pasta maker to make homemade pasta, but if you'd rather just use box pasta or refrigerated pasta, skip to 17 minutes and 46 seconds to pick up right where we start making the Alfredo sauce. So set up your Philips pasta machine or whatever pasta maker you're using. Just remember to line up the notches if you're using the Philips. That was my biggest mistake when I first started using it. I'm using the penne pasta disc this time. Next, you'll want to add 250 grams of all-purpose flour to the hopper. Put the lid in place, press power, automatic, and start. In a measuring cup, mix 1 large egg and enough water to equal 95 grams, and then slowly pour it into the hopper. 3 minutes later, you'll have pasta. Remember, the first few inches of your pasta are going to be a little dry and shaggy looking, but it's okay. It tastes great. It cooks up great. It just looks a little dry. As it continues to stir, it gets much smoother and makes beautiful pasta. You can see it's already starting to look nice. For this recipe, I made 1 pound of pasta. Once your pasta's done, just set it aside while we make our Alfredo sauce. For Alfredo, you'll need 2 cups of heavy cream, 2 cups of shredded Parmesan cheese, salt and pepper to taste, 1/3 of a block of cream cheese, a little fresh nutmeg or dried nutmeg is fine, and a 1/2 stick of butter. I use unsalted. Add cream and butter to a small saucepan and stir until melted. Add Parmesan cheese and cream cheese and continue to stir. Salt and pepper to taste. And add a dash of nutmeg. Stir until the cheeses are melted and the sauce has thickened. Set aside and bring salted water to a boil to cook your pasta. Add pasta to salted water and cook until al dente. Drain your pasta and add Alfredo sauce to the pot. Open your canned chicken and tip the liquid out of the jar and crumble it and add it to the pasta mixture. Mix well and add half of the mixture to a greased casserole dish. Sprinkle with mozzarella cheese and then add the rest of the pasta mixture. Top with a little more mozzarella cheese. And bake at 350 Fahrenheit for 15 to 20 minutes or until the cheese is melted and starting to brown. I like to serve this with a salad with a little balsamic vinaigrette, but it's also delicious just on its own. The final recipe I'm sharing is for a chicken and sausage perlo. For this recipe, you'll need 1 pint or 2 cups of cooked chopped chicken. You'll need 4 cups of chicken broth, 1 medium onion, I'm using frozen. You'll need some oil or some bacon grease for sauteing. You'll need a beef smoked sausage, 2 cups of parboiled white rice, and optional ingredient is kitchen bouquet browning seasoning. First, set your Instant Pot or pressure cooker to saute. I'm using a Breville pressure cooker. Put it on saute high and add your oil or your bacon grease. Cut up your sausage and add your onion. Cook until lightly browned and the onion is translucent, and then add 4 cups of chicken broth. Add your 2 cups of cooked chicken or 1 pint of canned chicken. 1 to 2 teaspoons of kitchen bouquet, again that's optional, 2 cups of parboiled white rice, and then give it a quick stir. Add salt and pepper to taste, and then close your lid. Next, turn your pressure cooker to pressure cook. You'll put it on 7.5 psi or medium pressure and cook for 12 minutes. You'll want to do a auto quick release, or with the Instant Pot, I believe it's just quick release. When it's done, give it another quick stir before serving. And we're having it with some fresh butter beans that I picked from my garden and a loaf of homemade bread. My husband will be in carb heaven tonight. These are just a few quick, easy ideas for using canned chicken, but it's very versatile and can be used for lots of different recipes. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.